Well, welcome back to the Tech Guy off the radio, the completely unexpected uh, edition that I didn't see coming, and probably a lot of other people did not see coming. The death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and obviously the people who watch this my live stream didn't see it coming because they're not here. So let me tweet out the link. Is up now here. Feel free to leave comments and I'll share and comments in chat, and I'll share and comment on them. The Tech Guy off the radio live stream special. Ruth Ginsburg edition is now live. Feel free. And I know some of you are seeing me say this. I gotta put the link up so people can find it. We get a few more people in here, and then we'll start chatting because I actually have the live screen small. So we're going to try and get as many people who I normally would have in here. Get a comment. Let's see, who else should I be inviting? Let's see. We'll throw a few more. See what this Wee John person is. WeJolyn. Let's see. WeJolyn. One Barbara Espinoza. Got to have her in here. Of course. Smitty, of course. Can't have that with Smitty. And then let's add Kurt. See if Kurt wants to jump in. So we are here for the totally unexpected live stream of the Tech Guy off the radio. We want to say hi to those who've already joined us in chat, and hopefully we'll get a few more. And let me tell you how I found out about this. Normally I go to a favorite place of mine down the road with my wife, but my other son had called, felt like going out, but felt like going out someplace else. And it turned out my wife wanted to go to the same place, but I had my heart set on my favorite place. So she and my son and my wife went off to this place for them. And I went off to this place myself, and I got a big meal, and I'm sitting down, I'm eating, and I'm ignoring the Red Sox because I haven't watched any baseball this year because of the woke stuff. And there's a couple sitting at the bar. Now, because of the rules in Massachusetts, the bars are not allowed to, you can't have a bar. So the restaurant put a table at the bar, and the people sat at the table that was at the bar, but they couldn't be served over the bar. So literally when they order a drink, the bartender has to come out and around to the table and give them their drink, because obviously if they hand them the drink over the bar, that's evil and terrible. Well, I found out why it's such a blessing to not have a cell phone anymore. Because the woman saw something on the cell phone, and you could see that the woman was a very, very leftist person. She says, "Oh my God, the country's doomed. It's going to," and I could hear her talking about, "Oh, what did the Republicans do? They can't nominate him. They didn't nominate." And from what she was saying, I could tell that there was suddenly a Supreme Court opening. Now, I didn't know if someone had resigned or if someone had died. I presumed it was Ginsburg because, she was very sick and so forth, but I didn't know. And I was literally watching this woman get text messages from people, "Don't melt down in the restaurant," and people saying various things along those themes. "Don't melt down, don't melt down, don't melt down." And so I presumed what was happening, but I had no confirmation. But let me give you a piece of advice. This is one of the reasons before anything else. Don't put on your cell phone in a restaurant. If you're in a restaurant to sit down and relax, enjoy your meal, enjoy your company, enjoy your drink. If you're a drinking person, don't let yourself get bogged down by this. That's the first thing. That's the first lesson of this. But now Ruth Bader Ginsburg is dead. And I'm going to share some comments. These comments are probably going to become a blog post, my lead post for tomorrow, which I hadn't written yet. So, Ginsburg dies at the age of, I believe she was 87 years old. Very long life in public service. Now, obviously, I have a negative opinion of her decisions and what she did with that public service, but these are her positions, and she has had a perfect right to advance them. Remember, she was nominated back in the days when it didn't matter if you disagreed with a person. The question is, did they have judicial qualifications? That was all. If they were qualified, they would get the vote, and she got a ton of votes for that reason. If she was nominated today, she would get no Republican votes, just like a Kavanaugh nominated today didn't get any Democrat votes. So she was nominated in a different era and was one of the people who helped bring about this new era. Whether or not you like her, dislike her, the first thing is, and I'm going to comment on several things here. And if you have comments, please leave them in chat. I will read your comments if you'd like, and I'll comment on your comments. The first thing, and I think the saddest thing about all of this, is what I saw on Instapundit. And I really, and it's a comment on what's happened to our culture. And what the comment itself at Instapundit wasn't offensive. It was the fact that it had to be said out loud was, and this is 8:38 p.m. Charlie Martin. And of course, I didn't see it at the time because I was out and I don't have a cell phone anymore. I chose, when I found the one I'd misplaced, I chose not to have it because I found that I liked life without a cell phone. So unlike the woman at the bar who was very, very agitated, very liberal, very agitated over the death of Ruth Ginsburg, I was just, if she didn't have her cell phone, she wouldn't have been agitated. I was able to just eat my meal and infer from what she was saying. But the post in Instapundit is, Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies. Try to have a little respect for the dead, please. And my first thought upon seeing that is, isn't it a terrible... Now, generally people on the right, because we're religious, tend to show some respect for the dead because that's part of what religion, at least Christianity, calls for and so forth. But the fact that that had to be said, the fact that it was actually had to be said, try and show respect for the dead. That it had to be written down and said aloud, or written aloud, is a horrible commentary on where we are now versus the day that she was nominated for the court last century. And again, I think she's been I think her decisions were terrible. I think her decisions generally hurt the country, but they were her decisions. And she was on the court. It was her prerogative to make her decisions, just like it's Justice Kavanaugh's prerogative to make his decisions and so forth. And she was consistent in her opinions pretty much. And that's why she was put on, and that's why the liberals loved her and so forth. So I have no problem with, I have no problem wishing her, wishing her to rest in peace. I have no problem with wishing condolences for the family. I mean, she, by any rational definition, she lived a long, useful life in public service, doing what she believed was right. Now, whether I believe what's the thing she did was right is immaterial in terms of that. She believed they were right. And unlike, and I'm going to say something nasty about Justice Roberts here, unlike Justice Roberts, who I think bends in the wind and let himself be leaned for various reasons, Ginsburg believed what she believed in and was fairly loyal to it. And I would challenge anyone to say that Ginsburg made a decision based on intimidation or something. Her decisions were based on her set of beliefs. And whether you think those beliefs were good or whether you think they were bad, I think they were horrid in most cases. They were by definition, by a conservative definition, honorably come to, according to what she thought was right. So I'm not going to begrudge her that. In terms of her request that she not be replaced, that I think she's out of luck. The graveyards are full of indispensable people. And those who considered Ruth Bader Ginsburg indispensable, you got to learn that everybody dies. We are all going to die. I'm going to die someday. You are going to die someday. We're all going to die someday. And for those who would condemn Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I hope she burns, etc. I remember at Ace of Spades, he made a remark about John McCain burning. And my thought is this: I will be very happy if God gives all the mercy possible to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, because the day will come when I will need God's mercy myself. And I will never begrudge the mercy of the Lord on any person. And I will always cheer when the Lord gives mercy to a person, because first of all, like I said, I want that mercy. And second of all, anytime the devil doesn't get a soul is a win. I mean, it's nice to win a political victory here or there. But the only real victory in the universe, and I'm very Catholic, the only real victory in the universe is when the devil doesn't get a soul. When the devil fails to get a soul, that's victory, real victory. So I wish her to rest in peace. I wish all the mercy that God wants is willing to grant her on her. I pray for the same mercy for myself and my family. And in terms of her life, it was a long, useful life, serving causes she believed in. And I like the president's comment concerning this. The president, I'm looking on Twitter, and Twitter is probably the wrong place. I mean, if you're looking for how to discuss something like this in the right way, Twitter is probably the wrong place to be right now. And even this chat is probably the wrong place to be, going up raw on this. But it's an important issue. It's the issue that people are interested in. So I thought it would be worthwhile to have the chat. And if you like what I'm saying, fine. If you don't like what I'm saying, fine. If you think what I'm going to say is improper, fine. That's fine too. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. That's how I believe in things. That's what I believe. Well, I like what the president said. The president was like, "Oh, did she really die? Oh, a remarkable woman. I mean, whatever you think of her opinion, remarkable woman. I'm actually sorry to hear it." Now, politically, you can say, well, the president really wants that nomination and so forth. Let me tell you something. We all knew that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was, at death's door. In fact, I think it was 8 years ago or so, I had my screen background was a sketch from the Supreme Court with the justices like this. And of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg had fallen asleep and her head was down. So we all know that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not well. It's actually amazing she outlived Justice Scalia. Her husband had died a few years ago. And, it's got to be hard for a person. I said this earlier this year. Your best friend is dead, Justice Scalia. Your husband's dead. You're very old. You're infirm. And people were saying, well, why doesn't she quit the Supreme Court? A lot of liberals wanted her to retire from the court near the end of President Obama's term so that Obama would get a chance to nominate a new justice. But my thought has always been, she had nothing else. This was her life. I'm sure she had children and grandchildren, and she could have taken joy in them. But in terms of useful work, this is what she had. So I'm certainly not going to begrudge her. The appointment is for life. If she wanted to stay for life, and she did, she had every right to do it. And I would no more demand that I have no more business demanding that Ruth Bader Ginsburg retire than I would have a right demanding that Justice Thomas retire in 2 years if President Trump is reelected, or so forth. Now, is it to the political advantage or to what I think is best for the country to that? Sure. I got no business telling these people this is an appointment for life. They wanted to stay to the end. Ruth Bader Ginsburg stayed to the end. That's fine. Justice Thurgood Marshall, when he retired, he would say, "Why did you retire?" Because I'm old. He said, "I'm old. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not in a condition to." It was Justice Ginsburg's prerogative to stay till she died. That's fine. but it's the president's prerogative as to what to do next. And regardless of her opinion on it, her opinion means nothing in terms of the president's decision. I mean, she didn't have a lot of love for this president, and he has no obligation to respect her wishes on it, because it's not Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat on the Supreme Court. It's the people's seat. It's the seat of the government of the United States, any more than, Justice Taney's seat or it doesn't matter. Every Rehnquist, any of them, they are only holding the seat that someone else has had before them and someone else is going to hold after them. That is the nature of the Supreme Court. So Justice Ginsburg has no more call on that seat or control of how that seat goes than anybody else. Now, again, if anyone watching in chat has a different opinion, feel free to say it in chat or share it. We can all discuss it. I'm very happy to discuss this. That's why we're doing this bonus show. I finished my actual podcast 6 hours ago. I did not think I'd be doing a second podcast today. I actually had things to do that I really should be doing right now. But either way, so we're going to talk about this some more. Now let's talk about the politics for it. It's about it. And the politics for this, in my opinion, favors the Democrats. And it favors the Democrats for this reason. Joe Biden is the most uninspiring. I mean, he's more likable than Hillary Clinton, but that's not saying much. I mean, being more likable than Hillary Clinton is not an accomplishment. But he inspires no one. Joe Biden inspires no one. There are a lot of Democrats who are not inspired by Joe Biden. But there are Democrats who are inspired at the thought of a Supreme Court nomination. So in terms of the raw politics of election 2020, this is the best thing that could happen to Joe Biden. The Sicilian in me was asking to myself, gee, I wouldn't have been surprised if the Democrats slipped her a Mickey or something to get rid of her, because this is the thing in terms of getting Democrats motivated. This is a very good thing for Democrats, because this is going to motivate Democrats to show up. Now, do I want Democrats motivated to show up? No, I want them all to stay home and play tiddlywinks, or they can play whatever game they want. Let them all stay home and watch the marathon of the West Wing. But if you are a fanatical Democrat, you are motivated. Now, granted, fanatical Democrats are already motivated. There's a lot of never Trump people on the Democrat side who are voting strictly to hate Trump. But there are some Democrats who might have stayed home, who now might decide, this is worth doing. Now, Dom911 has just tweeted out that McConnell's statement says Donald Trump's nominee will see a vote in the Senate. Now, I want to talk about that because this is an interesting point. And the Democrats, and this was the other point I was going to make, that the Democrats and the Republicans it's sort of like that episode. I don't know if you ever saw The Good Wife. There was an episode where they're arguing about ballots being counted in an election, and you have one side saying this and the opposite side saying that, because they expect the ballots to show a particular thing. As soon as it turned out that the ballots were the opposite, gave the opposite result than they expected, both sides instantly started arguing the exact opposite. And this is what's happening. Mitch McConnell, the very first thing out of Chuck Schumer's mouth, and I'm going to go over to Twitchy to bring it up. And Twitchy notes that the first thing, I hit Don Schubert. We'll talk about what Don Schubert has to say in a few seconds. But okay, here we go. That's gonna be fun. We got a lot to talk about here. We got a lot to talk about. Cripes, I've got a million things to talk about now just from bringing up Twitchy. Here is what Chuck Schumer said, and Twitchy's over there. Chuck Schumer's first tweet on the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a troll of Mitch McConnell. And here's the tweet from Schumer. The American people should have a voice in the selection of the next Supreme Court justice. Therefore, the vacancy should not be filled until we have a new president. Now, I have absolutely no trouble or no problem with Chuck Schumer making that argument. First of all, he can make any argument he wants. And the fact that this argument is exactly the opposite So, I mean, someone just sent me a DM saying her last request was the that the seat remain empty. And I'm saying, so I mean, his last request means nothing. The last I got that as a DM in Twitter. The last request means absolutely positively nothing. She could have asked for a line of conga dances as her last request. It means nothing in terms of what people do. But Schumer's argument, no, we should wait. It's a fair argument to make. And he can even make the point that we waited last time. He has every right to make that argument and make that point and change his position. And here's the exact Trump quote I mentioned earlier. She just died? Wow, didn't know that. She led an amazing life. What can you say? She was an amazing woman, whether you agree or not. She was an amazing woman who led an amazing life. I'm actually sad to hear that. That's what the president said. I think that's a nice statement. But the thing is, like I said, I don't mind the left. If you're on the left and you're watching this or not watching this or whatever, and you want to make the argument that we should wait till after the election so that the hearings can be done, all this stuff, you have a perfect right to make that point. You can look at what happened last time. That's a fair argument to make. However, I likewise have absolutely no problem with Mitch McConnell making the exact opposite argument and pointing out that this was Chuck Schumer's argument 4 years ago. And here on Twitchy, Mitch McConnell, quote, this is from Axios, McConnell has released a statement following the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Quote, President Trump's nominee will receive a vote on the floor of the United States Senate. Now, there's no time limit listed there, but yeah, he's gonna get a vote. And people want to say, oh, well, this is hypocrisy. Well, if Schumer has the right and the left have the right to change their opinion, McConnell and the right have the right to change their opinion. There's one big difference, though. In both cases, Mitch McConnell has the power. He's the majority leader. And thanks to the relentless efforts of the Democrats, the filibuster is kaput. Remember when the Democrats, don't do the filibuster. We can get away from the filibuster. And McConnell said, you want to do that? Well, now you get to pay for it. So McConnell changes his opinion, but he has the power. He has the power to call for a vote. Now, the president still has to have a nominee. And on Twitter, there's a person, I don't know the person's name, Rosalie. I think she follows me. No, she doesn't. And she pointed out, that I think it's, it'd be more respectful to at least wait till Monday. And I don't think the president will name a nominee tomorrow. I mean, Saturday, Sunday, he'll probably let them all speculate for a day or two. But I see no problem. But let's face it. Everybody knew Ruth Bader Ginsburg was on death's door. If you want to pretend that they implanted a bionic brain and a bionic heart or whatever into her and she was going to live forever, you're an idiot. Everybody knew Ruth Bader Ginsburg was on death's door and has been knocking at the door for the last year. And President Trump's team has had a nominee, probably has decided on a nominee a long time. And Patrick McDonald asks a very good question in chat. And we're going to jump to his question because I think it's a valid one. Given the absolute precipice we are on, would it be wise to nominate before the election, generally worried about civil unrest? Well, that's a fair point. And I'm going to repeat the question because more people have just entered chat. This is a question from Patrick. Given the absolute precipice we are on, would it be wise to nominate before the election, generally worried about civil unrest? And my answer to that question is, well, that would be a pretty good argument if we didn't already have civil unrest. Unfortunately, you mean, gee, if we make this nominee, leftists might loot, or leftists might burn, or leftists might destroy, or leftists might wish death on conservatives, or shoot conservative supporters of Trump. All of these things have already happened. All of these things have already happened. And worse was coming as the election was getting closer. So, I mean, it's a great, I want to read you this exchange that I had early on Twitter from rebootcongress.net, which is a Rick Tyler type thing. Nothing would be more clarifying. for the voters of America than a Supreme Court nomination fight in October. Bring it. And my answer was, I don't know. I think rioting, looting, and cheering the murder of police was pretty damn clarifying. But it's a fair point. I mean, yeah, you have some more. Yeah, and I agree with Dominic. The civil unrest is already happening. It's not going to make it any worse or any better because people act according to their natures. People who are rioting now are going to riot anyways. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was alive the entire time they were doing nasty things in Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis and Pennsylvania and DC and Chicago. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, all of this was still happening while Ruth Bader Ginsburg was alive. It's not going to happen any less now that she's dead. It's just, I understand the point. It's not a stupid argument. I don't mean to put you down, Patrick. But I think that the civil unrest is already here. And all I can think of is the line, the devil rages like a raging beast because he knows his time is short. The left, I anticipated that the last month, the left would be raging like a beast because they knew their time was short. But for the left, this is probably the best thing that could happen to them in terms of trying to motivate some voters who might not have shown up. Some of the young people, particularly, the heads full of mush, might turn out because of this for them. This is actually good news for the left in that regard, but it's also big news for the right. But the problem is this is my opinion, and other people will have to decide whether this opinion is valid. And I mentioned that woman in the bar who was so agitated, which is how I found out that there was a vacancy. I didn't know for sure she was dead, but I knew there was a vacancy. She was very agitated about the country this, the country that. And I kept thinking to myself, you know what? You're in a nice restaurant. You're with your husband or significant other. You're having a nice meal. You're enjoying each other's company. The first thing to concentrate on is your own life in your own place, rather than worrying about Washington. And while this may motivate some on the left, I think if you are worried because of riots and violence already, and your thought is, I'm a leftist, I really would like Ruth Bader Ginsburg to be replaced by a leftist, or, I'm a leftist, but I don't like people burning down my city, and I'm afraid I'm going to get killed. Which do you think is going to motivate your vote more? I think people who are afraid of rioting and looting and being killed trumps people worried about who the next Supreme Court justice is going to be. I think that if you have your neighborhood torched, if you're worried about your house being burned, if you're worried about your business being torched, that trumps a Supreme Court justice. Because, yeah, Supreme Court justice is important in terms of politics. But whether or not your house is burned is real life. And this is a lot of times we forget when we talk about politics, that real life is where you are. Real life, while what happens in Washington can affect what you have, and which is why it's important to vote and stuff. In the end, your family, your job, the people next to you in your neighborhood is real life. It's where you are. It's what's important. That's why I was commenting on, for those of you who are watching today's regularly scheduled podcast, I podcast for those of you who just joined us. My normal podcast time is 3 p.m. Eastern time on Friday, and we did do a live stream then. Sometimes I move it up to 11 if I pick up an extra shift. This is a special, for those of you just joining us, this is our special extra bonus podcast, the Tech Guy Off the Radio, Ruth Bader Ginsburg edition that I've decided to spontaneously do. But I think where you live is what matters. If you are in Pennsylvania and you are worried about the riots, I don't care if you're a leftist. You're worried if Donald Trump could replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg with Ann Coulter for all you care, because you're worried about someone throwing a brick through your business. If you own a restaurant, you're worried about if people are able to come and eat and so forth. People are worried about. You can motivate people away from things, but people are worried about what's near them. And to make that point, I'm going to quote the Screw Tape Letters. The Screw Tape Letters was written by C.S. Lewis, and it's basically a devil advising a young tempting devil on how to get somebody into hell. And there's one point where he's upset he has screwed up the temptation. He was getting this guy's tempting well. And suddenly the guy has repented. And he said, you made this fatal mistake. You allowed him a positive pleasure. And that the characteristics of pain and pleasure is real. So that if you were worried about, if you were trying to damn someone by romantic fears, the last thing you want them to have is real pain, because a real toothache distracts you from all this other stuff that's phony. Meanwhile, if you're trying to persuade someone away with fake pleasures, you don't want them to have a real pleasure, because that you recognize the real pleasure versus the fake one. And I think that the reality of riots, the reality of violence, trumps the non-reality of Ruth Bader Ginsburg being dead and the court replacement thing, at least in the places where people are afraid of riots. That's why Kenosha and Lancaster are so important, because if it can happen in Kenosha and Lancaster, it can happen anywhere. And that's why I think that's not going to move people as much. I don't think that that's going to motivate voters as much. I could be wrong, but I think that it might help run up the totals in terms of individual districts. Now, it might help the Democrats save the House, because I think Trump was heading for a very big win. This might help motivate Democrats in areas where there's already a high Democrat turnout, where it could have changed things a little bit. But I don't think it's going to hurt it in terms of the presidential election. I still think the president has this. Now, I want to read you this from the Don Schuber site. Okay. Ruth Bader Ginsburg died today of cancer at the age of 87. Kane at Citizen Presence, let me roll up again. At Citizens Free Press reported, Rhino Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska will join Democrats in blocking President Trump from replacing her. Murkowski said before the death, I would not vote to confirm a Supreme Court nominee. We've got 50 days away from an election. And frankly, that's not, if this was a less polarizing time, that might not be a bad argument. I mean, you want to have hearings, you want to go through this, you want to make sure a person's qualified. But that's not how people vote for Supreme Court anymore. There is no question that every single nominee, including and I forgot to get Merrick Garland, who never got a vote. There is no question every single one of the people who've been nominated over the last 10 to 15 years had extensive qualifications. In fact, when I was reading my history book, I was reading that final volume, 5th volume of American History Told by Contemporaries. Was reading a 100-year-old passage about the Supreme Court, and they were talking about how during the last 10 years, and this was something written in 1912, that all these nominees, there were Democrats nominated by Roosevelt, and Republicans nominated back and forth, and it didn't matter because they were all qualified, and they were considered, and it was considered that they would make impartial decisions. Nobody's talking like this anymore. People don't think that way anymore. It's phony. Because it's phony, I don't think that. And Dominic Reyes makes some good point. You can never count on Murkowski to stick to her word, because she might say that now, but in 2 years she might be running for re-election, and conservatives in her state might remember this. But it all depends on if she wants to run for re-election or if she just wants to retire with a lot of money, which a lot of these people want to do. I think Rush was very correct that a lot of this is driven by China. But when it comes down to it, that's really the driver. It's all politics now. It's all the division now. In any normal time, that would be a fair argument to make. Back to Don Schuber's piece. In other words, Murkowski will do to Donald Trump what Republicans did to Obama. The difference is Democrats did not help Mitch McConnell place a moratorium on judicial confirmations. That's hardball, but constitutional. I fully expect Rhino Mitt Romney, the winner of National Review's John McCain Award, to join her. Okay, I made up the award. I would not be surprised if Romney did that. But I would also not be surprised if Romney didn't do that. Because while the voters in Utah like Mitt Romney, he's had a long history with them, and he's given a lot to the Mormon church and so forth, and his family name is big, I don't know that they'd forgive that. And I think if there was a primary against Mitt Romney, that would be remembered. Okay, get back to Don Schubert. Republicans need to purge their party of enemies from within, and in his second term, President Trump must make this a top priority. I have no favorite for the replacement of Ginsburg. We're preferring to leave that to the president who delegated that to the Heritage Foundation, which has time, energy, and motivation to screen lawyers and judges to be judges and justices and so forth. Sure, Ted Cruz would be a nice replacement, but I believe there may be someone better whom I've not heard of. Murkowski is punishing her party for nominating Donald Trump, and she hates that her daddy was dethroned by the likes of Sarah Palin. For decades, Republican presidents were stuck with appointing moderate judges, and justices became Democrats because Democrat senators played hardball. Now, with the Republican team in control of the Senate and Murkowski has flipped sides, hers is a cynical position aimed at being in the good graces of a future Democrat senator in the White House. She has no principles. Her dad was a crook, and she's a schnook. How can you be conservative and allow Democrats to get this appointment? As for Justice Ginsburg, I refuse to speak ill of the dead. They are dead and unable to defend themselves. Chief Justice Roberts said, quote, "The nation has lost a jurist of historic stature. We at the Supreme Court has lost a cherished colleague. Today we mourn, but with confidence that future generations will remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg as we knew her, a tireless resolute champion of justice." Fine. The problem with the court is twofold. One, these are lifetime appointments, and two, the court is too powerful. All of the federal government is too powerful, and two branches of Congress and the courts have developed into lifetime appointments. McConnell is seeking his 7th term. I trust President Trump will have nominated a replacement, and the Senate will confirm 50-50 with Mike Pence casting the tie-breaking vote. That's how our Constitution works. My belief is he will rally voters behind him by being another alpha move, Biden beta. Donald Trump should exploit that weakness. Now, again, I've already stated that I think Donald Trump and the Republicans have had the name of who they're going to be appointing. They've had it taken care of for a long time because everyone expected this to happen. I would not be surprised to see a name submitted Monday. I wouldn't be surprised to see one submitted Sunday. I don't think one should be submitted on Saturday or Sunday. I'd wait till at least Monday. I'd wait till Monday. Give her the weekend. I would wait till Monday. But regardless, the Democrats aren't going to wait. The Democrats are going to go whole hog against everybody. And let me make sure something is understood to Susan Collins particularly. In case you do not understand this, the Democrats who are now threatening you over this vote, 24 hours ago were threatening you anyways. They were not going to vote for you anyways. They were still going to try and defeat you. To pretend that suddenly Susan Collins, well, now she's going to have to think twice because now this is going to hurt her. That's just stupid. And if she believes that, she's stupid or easily spooked. Dominic says, get her in the ground first to nominate. That's not an unreasonable thing either. I don't even have a problem waiting, 5 or 6 days. Let her have her funeral. I don't have a problem. But the Trump campaign is going to be ready to go. And they're going to push whoever they nominate. Now, most people have been saying Amy Coney Barrett was the next logical appointment. Of course, another woman replacing a woman type of thing. I don't know who the president's going to say. He might put up someone less obvious because you don't know if the vote will come through. Now, I still believe the president's going to win re-election. And I've talked about how this is going to affect the presidential election. Now let's talk about the Senate races. And I've already kind of said it out loud, but I'm going to say it again. That if you are a Republican running for the Senate and you are stupid enough to believe the Democrats saying, if you do this, we're going to get you. Then you're too stupid to be in the Senate, frankly. The Democrats are not going to let Mitt Romney realize that they are not suddenly going to love you. They are not going to suddenly love you. Okay, a question from Bridget. This is on Twitter. I don't know if she's in chat. Does this motivate any lefty who isn't already voting, or does this bring evangelicals home to Trump? That's a good question from Bridget. And I think that I think it's more likely to motivate evangelicals to Trump, but I don't know if it motivates evangelicals to Trump in the states that matter. I think it would more help him in states that I think he would already have been winning. I think it's less likely to motivate an evangelical in a blue state, although it might. I mean, it could make a little difference in Pennsylvania. As far as the left goes, I think it motivates the young people who normally wouldn't vote. And I think it motivates some of the Bernie people who might have stayed home. That's the biggest advantage to this, which is why, like I was saying earlier, I wouldn't have put it past and again, I'm Sicilian. I was joking earlier today that my neighbor on the left has a sign protected by ADP. My neighbor on the right has a sign saying protected by Verizon. I wanted to put a sign in the center with a picture of Don Corleone saying protected by Sicilians with generational memories and infinite patience. I think that is I think that sign would scare away a robber more than ADP or Verizon. But I don't think this is going to be, in terms of the presidential election, I don't think it's going to be big. In terms of congressional elections, it might make a difference. And I'm talking about on the congressional level. But it also depends on the riot stuff. Now, if and this is where the Democrats, and this is going to sound terrible, and I want to apologize right now because this is going to sound terrible. And I'm almost ashamed to say it, but it's the truth, so I'm going to say it. I suspect the Democrats will riot over this. I think you're going to see more violence. I think Patrick in chat is right. I think we're going to see more violence over a nomination. I fully expect I fully expect riots. I fully expect arson. I fully expect murder. I expect the Democrats to do this, and I expect them to not discourage it. Now, I'm going to give the Democrats free advice that they will not take. You are idiots if you do this. You are absolute positive idiots if you react to a Trump nomination with violence and rioting. Because, as I said, real pain, the woman at the restaurant, like I was saying before, she was all, what am I going to do? The woman's in her. The woman was at least 50-something, maybe older. This woman, abortion's not affecting her. None of that stuff's affecting her. She's got, your life is affecting. In fact, the thing that affects her most is the Trump boom. She's looking for another job. It's the Trump boom. If Trump doesn't get reelected and the boom and becomes the Biden bust, that's going to affect her. That's what's going to affect her. For all of the naysaying, for all of the, oh my God, we must protect abortion on campuses, for all the, oh my God, we can't let Trump get this thing on the campus that may move people in one direction. Violence and rioting, where you can actually get yourself hurt, where your place of business can actually be destroyed, where it's not safe for you to actually go into the restaurant or actually go downtown, that will affect things worse. Democrats, if you do this, and let me make it clear, I don't want you to do this. Given this is going to be and I can't believe I have to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it out loud. Given the choice between Democrats doing this stupid violence and rioting and so forth, and it being an advantage to the reelection of Donald Trump, or Democrats being smart and doing nothing violent, and it being to the disadvantage, I'll take the disadvantage. Because violence, rioting, and looting and murder are wrong. Even if it means the violence and riot and looting that hurts people who disagree with me. It's wrong. Yes, I think the violence, the rioting, all this stuff is helping Trump get reelected. But if I was given the choice, I would rather it not have happened. Even if it meant Trump lost, I would rather the violence had not happened because I don't like violence. I don't like rioting. I don't like looting. I don't like people getting hurt. And I especially don't like Americans being hurt in America. I don't like Americans not being able to say their freedoms, to exercise their freedoms in America. I don't mind. That's my opinion. But I think the Democrats are going to be stupid because they've empowered the most violent in their groups. They have no way of restraining them. They have absolutely no way of restraining them. Now, McConnell also put out a very long statement concerning the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and there'll be flattering statements, and they should be. I mean, regardless of what you think of her, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, regardless of what you think of her opinions, she led a long life in public service, and that's fine. Now, I love Reza Aslan. If they even try to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we burn the entire fucking thing down. And yes, I said fucking because that's what he means. That's what he said, actually. So they used the stars, I didn't. So Reza Aslan, you're an idiot. But if you choose to do that, if you choose to make this mistake, and I urge you not to, because it's going to hurt people. It is going to hurt people. I don't believe in people getting hurt. There's no reason for people to get hurt over this. But if you're that stupid to do it, you will enjoy the consequences of it. And I mean, I can't grasp people who think this way. Hey, Julia, nice to have you here. Remember, if you have comments or questions, throw them in chat. I'm sorry if you missed, and if you missed today's earlier podcast, remember these are all on the same playlist. You can check them out. I already have a blog post with the earlier thing. I have the podcast now. I'm going to put out a tweet now to try and see if Instapundit will refer it to the live chat, and we'll get a few people in here. Okay, hey, are you? Okay, I'm trying to get this thing taken care of here. I'm sorry it's taking long. My typing is terrible. I'll have to forgive me. Doing a live stream right now on RGB on Ruth Bader Ginsburg death. Watch live here. All right, so trying to get a few more eyeballs over here. But yeah, I think they're going to be very, very foolish. I think they're going to follow Reza Aslan's advice. And Bridget is commenting again. Have you mentioned that the only reason the Republicans have a majority in the Senate is Kavanaugh's confirmation of Christy Blasey Ford? No, I have not mentioned that. And let's also note that it was important enough to Anthony Kennedy that he have some say in his replacement that he retired. Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't retire in 2015 when she could be certain a Democrat would nominate her. She didn't retire in 2019 when the cancer came back. And again, I talked about this earlier because, again, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, this was her life. Her husband was dead. Her family was, her friend was dead, best friend. I do not begrudge her staying. I still don't begrudge her staying. I know I've said this earlier, but there's new people in chat. Don't begrudge her staying at all until death. It's a lifetime appointment, so she has the right to stay as long as her life permitted. So, but if they wanted to play politics with this, they could have. And again, if you have more questions or things you want me to comment on, throw them in chat. You can throw them in Twitter, and I'll try and comment them in chat. But it's going to say, now they're talking about Coleman Barrett. This is Kyle Quintana, quote, Trump once confided that he planned to nominate Coney Barrett to replace Bader Ginsburg, according to Axios. I'm saving her for Ginsburg, Trump told Confidence. Now, Barrett's a good choice. I'm all for Barrett, but I would not have a problem with them waiting till Monday. I do not have a problem with them waiting till Monday. Now, again, the left is already mobilizing. Maxime Baptiste, Brown Sugar, 7878, who used to do liberal commentary on my old radio show, DaTechGuy on the radio. is talking about phone banking for her tomorrow. I hope I convince people to get out and vote. They're already trying to use this as a thing to get people out to vote, and that's true. And Bridget's is now saying now she's too dead to care about the complete mess resulting from her death 2 months before an election. And yeah, right now she's worrying about. Yeah. Oh, Rita Penta, a great line. I got to quote you this. Reza, in response to Reza Aslan, you've been burning shit down for months. How's that working out for you? Got to retweet that. That was a brilliant thing to say because it's the truth. And as we've just been saying, this is a foolish time for Democrats, but it's more foolish for Republicans who decide to join the other side because we're not going to forgive that. You're going to get primaried. I guarantee you. Obviously, you won't get primaried now because it's too late. But I guarantee you that if you want to keep your seat and you expect Republicans to show up, vote against the Trump nominee here, and you're finished. And let me point out something to you. Trump is going to win this election. This election is going, this helps Biden, but it doesn't help Biden enough to win. Trump is going to win this election. And not only is he going to win this election, but I think he's going to bring majorities with him. And if you are Murkowski and the Republicans hold the Senate after this election, then you are going to be put on the sewage committee and be in charge of cleaning the Senate bathrooms. That is what you're going to be in charge of. That is what you are going to be doing. Any Republican who comes out against this is taking his political or her political fortune in his hands. And John Fund makes a very good point here. Quote, the court must be at full complement should any election disputes such as Bush v. Gore occur. Because remember, I fully expect if there's an election dispute to Justice Roberts to vote for the Democrats. Because unlike Ginsburg, and whatever you might say about Ginsburg never compromised her principles in terms of a vote. She voted the way she thought was right. I do not trust Justice Roberts to vote his principles. I don't. That's why I call him Old Yellowstone. The reason why Obamacare is still law of the land is Justice Roberts changed his vote at the last minute. The dissent was actually written as a majority opinion from things I've written about earlier. And this was a complete surprise. Scalia couldn't believe it. But pressure was put on him, and he swung. Now, and they're not going. And I know I'm repeating myself here. They are not going to love you. They'll love you for a day, but they're not going to love you. Now, if you figure they're going to make you rich, well, most of you guys are already rich. They're going to take care of you financially. Most of you guys are already taken care of financially. Don't be idiots. Don't be idiots. But frankly, I'm got to tell you, I'm wondering what else could happen in 2020. I don't think I was 5 years old in 1968, and that was a very interesting year. I didn't comprehend how interesting it was. It was also a disastrous year for the country in many ways. But I would not doubt it was probably one of the most interesting years there's ever been. Well, 2020 says to 1968, hold my beer. I am wondering what can happen next. I am really wondering what on earth could happen next to make things even more crazy. How much more crazy can it get? Well, we're going to find out now, and I got to tell you. I really got to tell you, I'm astounded that we're at this point. Now, I haven't heard much more from the people in chat. If you have a few more, I know Dominic says protests, but only in Washington. That would be smart by the Democrats. If they only had protests in Washington, and the media is going to be with them. But again, and this is another good point that I want to make here, is that this is where the media could have used all that credibility they threw away. You might, and remember Glenn Reynolds was saying over and over again, I mentioned this in the first podcast today, all the Democrats have to do is not be crazy. Well, They decided that being crazy was a great thing to do. It's like the old episode of Blackadder, where Blackadder says, "George, I think your mindless optimism is not going to help here." He says, "Well, I was really planning on going with the mindless optimism in this court case." The Democrats have decided to go with mindless optimism or mindless destruction or whatever whatever they're doing is generally mindless anyways. But that's a terrible thing to say, but unfortunately it's also true. But now think about and this is where the right thing is the smart thing. You know how I've said, and those of you who know me personally know that I have said this many times, the right thing is generally the smart thing. Now, I know a lot of times we do the wrong thing. There's a reason why I'm going to have to go to confession tomorrow, because I do the wrong thing. And the wrong thing is usually very tempting because it looks like the easy way out. The Democrats and the media did the wrong thing. They decided to start going after Donald Trump 14 minutes after his presidency, or 17 minutes, or whatever it is. The media and the Democrats threw away their credibility with a big chunk of the electorate. That's why the latest revelation about Donald Trump is not moving anybody. Do you think anybody remembers? I mean, think about this. How many of you can name the name of the latest Donald Trump accuser? By tomorrow, nobody's going to be caring about that person's name. That story, thanks to Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, that story is now completely wasted. The Democrats won't even get, it's gone. That story's gone. Now, I'm going to quote from Hugh Hewitt here. I asked real Donald Trump about a Supreme Court vacancy on 8/11. That was last month, about 40 days ago. First serious question. In the last 5 months of the term, for the last 5 months of your second term, if you get one, would you make a nomination to fill a vacancy that occurred on the Supreme Court? Donald Trump, you mean if something happened like now? Hugh Hewitt, yes. Absolutely, I'd do it. Sure, it depends. Someone in mind? I don't know what you're talking about, time, but if you're talking about if it would happen now, no, I would move quickly. Why not? I mean, they would. The Democrats would if they were in that position, and that's the most important statement about all of this. And to every Democrat who, okay, Dominic has a question. I'm not going to finish my sentence. I'll say what I'm going to say to every Democrat in a few minutes. Dominic's question. Will the protests regarding a Supreme Court nomination take all media coverage and the BLM protests become moot? That's a good question. It will certainly take all the media coverage, but the Black Lives Matter protests will become moot anyways, because as soon as the Democrats decided the protests were hurting them, the coverage started disappearing. The coverage started changing. As soon as the remember DaTechGuy's laws of media outrage. An event is national news. Whether or not an event becomes national news depends on how it affects Democrats. It's like the shooting of the little girl in Texas last year. When they thought it was a white supremacist or something, it was national news. The moment it was found out it was a black neighbor or something, dropped away. Because it was no longer national news, because it could no longer help Democrats. The Black Lives Matter protests were already coming off the air a bit because they were becoming less popular and becoming trouble. Look what happened with the Pittsburgh Steelers. All but Villanueva had the name of this guy on their helmets. Villanueva put a name of a dead soldier who was decorated. People gave him grief, and then it comes out that the guy who was on everyone's helmet turned out to be a drive-by shooter guy. So it's like, now they're trying to backtrack. The Black Lives Matter stuff is hurting Democrats. So while they will make some noise in the media, enough noise to say, oh, we're really with you, it was going to be downplayed anyways, because they understand it's now a liability. Anything that is a liability for the Democrats is going to be downplayed by the media. Now, in one respect, Dominic, you're very right. The media will use this as an excuse to pivot away from it, because they'll say this is a bigger story. And they're right. It is a bigger story in terms of national interest. But as I said earlier, if someone riots in your town, if someone's harassing people, like if that woman had harassed me at that restaurant, That would be a big deal in my town. Who gives a damn about the other stuff? Someone's harassing me physically. Someone's harassing my wife. Someone's harassing my son. If you're messing with me or mine, that's big news. That trumps national news. So in terms of media coverage, the media will downplay the Black Lives Matter stuff. They'll use this opportunity to pivot away from it because they've decided that hurts Democrats. But in places where violence is still happening, in places where people are still being intimidated, in places where the looting or the beating up of people or whatever is still taking place, that's still going to be the overriding issue because, like I said about pains and pleasures, what's real versus what's imagined. The reality of my life is in danger, my job is in danger, my family is in danger, my house is in danger, will always trump something phony like, oh my God, it's the, hey, Wee John, nice to have you here. Glad to have you. Sorry we didn't have you in the earlier chat. If you have a question or comment, just leave it in chat. I'll be happy to discuss it. And as I was just saying to Dominic had asked, will the protest regarding a Supreme Court nominee take media coverage away? I was explaining Black Lives Matter. They already wanted a reason to pivot. This is their reason to pivot. But it will not matter in places where there's still rioting, looting, or any type of trouble. The reality of your own situation will trump it. And that's really the story here. It's certainly not going to be a boring time. I tell you, I almost wish I didn't have my job at the moment, in the sense that there's a lot of news to cover, and I wish I had one of the advantages of having been laid off at the time and getting credentialed as media and going to places. Can Pence vote is the question. Yes, if it's 50-50, he's a deciding vote. So if Murkowski, Collins, and Romney decide we're going to sit this one out, Pence is number 51. Because it's a Senate vote. Pence would have, this is the same as any other Supreme Court vote. And again, all of this is made possible by the Democrats deciding they were going to kill the filibuster. But I want to get back to a point I was making before, is that Glenn Reynolds and Instapundit had said over and over again, all the Democrats have to do is not be crazy. Well, this is a point I really was going to wait till later to do. I didn't want to make this point because I thought it might help the left, but I'm going to make the point anyways. If the Democrats had treated Donald Trump like a normal president, if the media had treated Donald Trump like a normal president, then right now they would have the advantage. Because they would say, why should Donald Trump use different rules than Barack Obama? Why should the rules be different? If they had treated the Trump presidency as a normal presidency, then right now the effort to block a vote would have made a difference. They would have had the credibility left to do something about it. If the media had not beclowned themselves over the last 4 years, acting like the world was. Remember, I didn't mention it in today's podcast, but I mentioned it before. 4 years ago, I was at work and I was working with a young lesbian, nice girl, pretty girl, young girl, intelligent, hardworking, knew what she was doing. I liked working with her. But she was absolutely convinced that Donald Trump was going to put her in a concentration camp. Absolutely convinced. I'm telling her, that's insane. I mean, I tried to explain to her, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It didn't matter. It did not matter what I said. She was absolutely, positively convinced that Donald Trump was going to put her in a concentration camp. And people believe this. There are a bunch of leftists who thought, and this was before the rioting, there was a lot of leftists who believed pre-rioting, right after the election, that they were going to be locked up, they were going to be put away, all these terrible things were going to happen to them because Donald Trump was president. And they didn't. Instead, the economy went well and all these things went well until the Chinese virus was released. Now, I say the word released because I'm becoming more of the opinion that it was not an accident, or that it was an accidental release, and then the Chinese decided, well, it's already out. Why should we be the only people who are hurt by it? Because, the virus wasn't ready. But this is where the media and such have all basically killed themselves. If they had not thrown away their credibility on stupidity like Mueller, like Russiagate, like all of these other things, right now is when the media and the left could have and academia could have used their credibility. But they threw it away. And I can't help but think of the line from Stonewall Jackson. Anybody who does not see the hand of God and God of this is blind, sir, blind. Now, you might say, well, hey, Stonewall Jackson's side lost. Well, yeah, Stonewall Jackson's side lost eventually. But they won long enough so that Lincoln decided, gee, I better free the slaves. I need to change something here. If the Union had won the war like in the first year, no, you don't get an Emancipation Proclamation. Because, hey, this isn't about slavery. Boom, we're going to take care of it. Now, the left is in real trouble with this. And McConnell's going to say, hey, this is the position you guys had 4 years ago. Now you're going to complain that I'm not doing the position? The problem for the left is McConnell has the power and he's going to use it. Yeah, that's pretty much true. They don't have any moderates left. Now, they may have some people who are actual moderates, but they're afraid. They're afraid. And they're afraid of Antifa. And the reason why they're afraid of Antifa is because Antifa and Black Lives Matter has become a substitute for religion. And Antifa and the violent mobs are their inquisition. And the Inquisition always goes after the apostate before it goes after the infidel. If you are, for example, if you are a follower of Islam in an Islamic country and you convert, they may hate me as an infidel, but they're going to kill you first because you've converted. These people are afraid for themselves. I mean, Ted Wheeler's lefty. He's afraid from, look at all these lefty mayors who are getting intimidated. Even the people who would be actually moderates, they're scared to death of these guys. And they should be, because they're violent extremists. And you empowered them because you thought it would help you win because you're idiots. You thought short term. And as a Catholic, again, and I'm going to go into religion here a little bit. The Democrats have become a largely secular party. Religious people like myself, I've generally become Republican. I left the Democratic Party in the 90s because I decided that as a pro-life Catholic, I wasn't wanted. And just like Wendy's, which I explained in today's podcast, I don't go places where I'm not wanted anymore. I'm not wanted. You don't want me? Fine. I'll go away. You don't need my vote. You don't want my vote? That's fine. And earlier today, I commented that the left was actually, I think the left was reaching the point where they decided they were going to lose, and they didn't care about trying to convert voters they needed or to win back Obama Democrats who had voted for Trump, because they figured, we're just going to be cathartic and tell them to go to hell. So they didn't bother. They did not bother to do the things that would have saved them. Right now, the media could really use the credibility that they had. They don't have it anymore. Right now, the Democrats could use the credibility they would have had. They don't have it anymore. Right now, the Never-Trumpers would be the most fun. Because some of the Never-Trumpers had said, yeah, well, Trump made a good appointment here or there. But, it's still not worth it. But now we're at a point where this is the Ginsburg seat that's now going to be replaced. Now we're going to find out if they really ever cared about the Supreme Court. Now we're going to find out. Now we're going to discover if they really think, if they have, we're conservatives, we care about these things. Donald Trump isn't a real conservative, all right? Now the Supreme Court is actually up for grabs. This seat, if Trump fills this seat with a good conservative, then even if Roberts votes with the Democrats, it's 5-4 in our favor, which means that, and I believe this, if the Republicans already have a majority, then Roberts will start voting with the Republicans again, because it won't matter. I think that Roberts basically is in a situation where if it's something that the Democrats say, I have to have your vote, he's with them. But if it's something where he's not the deciding vote, he's in the Fishbait Miller situation. And for those of you who don't know, Fishbait Miller used to be the doorman for the House of Representatives. And the speaker at the time, Sam Rayburn, if there was members of the House who didn't want to vote on a thing that Rayburn wanted passed, either they had promised him, but situations have changed or whatever, Rayburn would have them sit in the front, and they would be told, watch Fishbait Miller. And if Fishbait Miller gives you the high sign, then you can vote against me. I'll let you do it because I've already got the votes. But if you don't get the signal from Fishbait Miller, I expect you to vote with me, come hell or high water. Justice Roberts is the Fishbait Miller of the Supreme Court. If the Democrats want that vote, they have it. Now, they don't want to use it every time because then it's too obvious. But that's my opinion on Justice Roberts. He's the Fishbait Miller vote. And I got to tell you something, that this is why this vote is so big. Now, I'm popping over into a few sites to see what they're saying. I'm at Hot Air. I want to read you the Hot Air article. Then I'm going to jump to Stacey McCain. At Hot Air, the political shocks will come soon enough, but now it's the time to mark the end of an era. Supreme Court Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away after 27 years on the court after a long, tough fight with pancreatic cancer. Cancer always wins in the end. I mean, you fight off death for a while, but you die from it sooner or later. And like I said, we're all going to die sooner or later. I'm going to die. You're going to die. We're all going to die. It's how you live that matters. So the announcement came out. I'm not going to read you the thing on the announcement. Regardless of ideology or approach to devote a life to public service, I've already said that, kind of dedication to law and its application should be recalled with respect and gratitude. We've had a lot of reasons and occasions to disagree with her, but Ginsburg's now beyond those issues, and so should we be too. Our condolences, prayers, and best wishes go to her family, friends, and admirers for their loss. And as I've said earlier, I am all in favor of God showing as much mercy as to Ruth Bader Ginsburg as he can, because I'm going to need that mercy sooner or later, and I will not begrudge it to anyone else. And the true victory in life is any time that Satan doesn't get a soul. If Satan doesn't get it, every time Satan doesn't get a soul is a victory, in my opinion. And Jazz Shaw's reaction, R.I.P. Notorious RBG. Honestly shocked. Thought she would be going on like the Energizer Bunny. Long career of service. However, her death creates a unique political issue at a critical time. It's not too soon to discuss that, even as Ginsburg itself recognized shortly before her death. Quote, just before her death, as her strength waned, Ginsburg dictated this statement to her granddaughter. Quote, my most fervent wish is that I not be replaced until new president installed, unquote. Well, you have the right to wish. Wishes cost you nothing. But, sorry, you don't get to make that decision. And you can make that statement, and you did, but you don't get to make that decision. Again, here's Hot Air. It's possible that Trump could just pick a name off his list in the next few days, but that's as far as it'll go. Amy Conrad Barrett seems to be the most likely candidate under the circumstances, and she's been relatively recently vetted for an appellate court. However, there's almost no time left for a candidate to go up for a vote before the election. There's 6 weeks to go before Election Day, and few of those days will have senators around to conduct business. Lindsey Graham probably can't even arrange a confirmation hearing in the Judiciary Committee that fast, let alone pass a nominee to the full floor. Yes, he can if he decides to, by the way. What's more likely to happen will be that Trump's election will end up being a major issue in the election, perhaps the major issue. It'll remind voters of both parties of the stakes in the presidential elections, but it'll change turnout models. I guess Republicans are already pretty motivated, and Democrats, for whom this is critical, probably are too. This probably isn't much of a game changer in that sense, but it might convince some previously Trump voters who've been disillusioned to come back to the fold in this issue. The big question is, will the Senate confirm a Trump appointee after the election if he loses to Biden? Would Mitch McConnell escalate the judiciary wars with that kind of a maneuver? I'd guess he'd try, but don't expect all 53 senators to go along. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski would absolutely balk, which means McConnell would have one vote to lose. The meltdown that would follow would likely cow more than one other Republican to quail. And I've already explained why they should not, because you will not win anything for this. The most likely outcome is that either Trump wins or Biden gets to choose. I disagree. I think the vote comes before the election. I think Trump's not going to wait. I think Trump's going to force the issue. I think that's his nature because he understands. Donald Trump reminds me of, I mean, frankly, in terms of presidents, the more history I read, the president that Donald Trump most reminds me of is Teddy Roosevelt in terms of what he does and how he does it. In terms of keeping promises, it's James Knox Polk. But in terms of what he does and how he does it, the president that Donald Trump is most like is Teddy Roosevelt. And Teddy Roosevelt is a lose not a moment guy. But in terms of the application of power, the president Donald Trump is most like is Lyndon Baines Johnson. Lyndon Johnson understood power. And he understood how to use power. And he would use it. Donald Trump understands power. And he understands how to use it. He doesn't understand it in a theoretical sense the way Obama did, or the way other people do, or the way academics do. Donald Trump, oh yeah, Johnson is a racist with no empathy, but I'm not talking about whether or not he was a good man. I'm saying Lyndon Johnson understood the application of power. I'm not talking about morality here. I'm talking strictly about the application of power. When Lyndon Johnson was in control of the Senate, anything he wanted passed got passed. Anything he didn't want passed didn't get passed. Trump understands the application of power. And in terms of the presidency, the last president who understood it as well was Johnson. Trump is going to use that power. And he's going to get his nominee passed. I'm going to make this prediction right now. Donald Trump is going to, I'm going to go out on a limb here. It is 10:57 on the 18th of September. Donald John Trump is going to nominate a person for this Supreme Court opening, and this person is going to win that seat, that nomination vote before the election. He's going to do it. Trump, power and discernment, but that's part of power. Part of power is to be able to discern when you can use it and when you cannot. Sarah Palin is like that. Sarah Palin knew how to spend political capital. This is where I'm going to spend my political capital. This is where I'm not going to spend it. Donald Trump understands that. But he also understands how to make the vote go his way. He knows how to make a deal. Trump is going to, there's going to be a vote. He's going to nominate someone. There's going to be, this is my prediction. I think they're wrong at hot air. Trump's going to nominate someone. There's going to be a vote. He's going to win it. I'm telling you that right now. I am making this prediction now. Donald Trump will nominate a person. I don't know if it's going to be Barrett. But he's going to nominate someone and they're going to win. And they're going to be on the Supreme Court. And there will be a Trump majority on Election Day. Which means there's going to be a Trump majority that decides election issues when the Democrats decide to do their thing. That's the thing this is the real disaster. And I haven't even touched on this yet. This is the real disaster for the Democrats. Is that if they decided to try legal chicanery and get to the Supreme Court, it would have been 5-4 and Roberts would have voted with them. Guarantee you Roberts would have voted for them. But now there's a tie court. Now there's a tied court. Will it be worse than Kavanaugh? Oh, yeah. I mean, but I don't think it will be, and that's the question that's in chat. Will it be worse than Kavanaugh? I think it will be worse than Kavanaugh, but it will be different than Kavanaugh. Am I too loud for you? No. By the way, your cousin Dominic says hi.
Did you get my message about?
Yes, I did, and I commented on it in the chat. Do you want to jump in? Well, you can't jump in. You're not wearing pants.
No,
He's ever.
I just want to tell you that a lot of people I know are saying vote like your life depends on it.
Yeah. Okay. Now my son, Daniel, has a bunch of liberal fanatical friends. Daniel is not a liberal fanatic. He's sane.
Like
90% of his friends are liberal fanatics, so he doesn't talk politics with them because he wants to function. Oh yeah, your cousin Dominic does say hi. He says hi back. But just jump if you got your computer, jump into the live chat and live stream. You can talk to him yourself. But this is a disaster for the left because now, at best, they have a 50-50 split on the court. That's where their real problem is. Because now even with Justice Roberts, they do not have the fifth vote. Now, this is Jonathan Martin from the New York Times. Senator Collins told me earlier this month in Maine that she would not seat a Supreme Court justice in October. I think it's too close. She said she'd also oppose seating a justice in the lame duck section if there's a change of presidents. Now, the question is, will she still be saying that now? Because remember, if you quote something to a reporter, that's not the same as saying something under oath. Press statements are not made under oath. You are allowed to change your mind. Again, this is hot air. I guess we'll hear from Cory Gardner and Martha McSally sometime too. There's probably an end before the campaign question. Again, none of this stops Trump from nominating a replacement, but whoever it is should be prepared for a shitstorm of personal attacks. You're going to get a shitstorm anyways. Remember, and I say this to Republicans, I know I've said it already tonight, there is going to be a shitstorm no matter what. No matter what you do. And McSally's already said the Senate should vote on the Supreme Court nominee. Robert Costa, from before my notebook calls over the past hour, there are discussions within the Senate COP about voting before the election, making the argument the argument I just made, that 9 justices are needed in case of an election crisis. But ours who aren't sure, like Murkowski and Collins, would fight it. And again, this is saying, I'm not sure that's necessary. This is Captain Ed saying, not sure this is necessary. We have a 5-3 majority with Ginsburg passing, at least nominally. But Roberts would probably try hard to avoid a 4-4 split. He wouldn't try that hard. He would not try that hard. Hi, Dominic. Great to have you. The shitstorm is brewing. Oh, Dominic, the new Dominic that came in. Just an FYI, I've decided about the new league since the league is ending. I'm going to do both a Great Teams League and a SD Jones League. I'll be sending out the announcements later this week after the playoffs are done. The new Dominic who just tweeted in is in my tabletop, my online baseball league, if you're wondering why I said that. But the shitstorm is already here. The shitstorm was already here before this. This just makes it a shittier shitstorm as far as this goes. Ted Cruz has an excellent point. If election is litigated, can't risk having just 8 justices, and the possibility of a deadlocked court could cause a constitutional crisis. In that case, the nomination of Merrick Garland threatened to create a 5-4 liberal tint. The Republicans blocked that for obvious reasons. But it did leave a 4-4 ideological split that was more likely to deadlock if the court had to deal with election challenges. Didn't bother Republicans at the time. That's because nobody thought there'd be an election challenge. Everyone presumed that, at least everyone on the left presumed that Hillary had this. So no one was worrying about that. Now, I want to jump over to the other McCain, who basically quotes an article and then says, well, this certainly raises the stakes for November 3rd. Ace has some thoughts here. This is from Ace of Spades. You know what I hate? Confirmation. Like, I would never agree to be part of a counter-protest. If someone is having a rally, let them have their rally, and if you disagree, go organize your own rally. Don't show up for someone else's event to do an in-your-face protest against them having an event. The reason I mention this is because the whole protest-counter-protest dynamic has been so normalized during the past 15 or 20 years that we all take it for granted. And now we're going to have the mother of all battles over the nomination to replace Ginsburg. I get a headache just thinking about that. That's Stacey McCain. And here's what Ace of Spades says. Anyone who says the next president will appoint 3 Supreme Court justices is a Trumpian liar. We're smart. And that's posted by all the Twitter addict never Trumpers in 2016. So I'm going to read you what Ace says over here. This leftist hack stayed on the court despite being it. Now I want to point out something. These are Ace's words, not mine. I've already given my opinion on Justice Ginsburg. She was a principled supporter of things I think were abominable. And she was consistent in her support of those abominable things because she thought they were the right thing. I don't begrudge her that. People have the right to be wrong. And she was wrong, honest in that respect. The left, but this is how Ace put it. The leftist hack stayed on the court despite being in a dying state just to run out the clock, and now she demands that her corpse also be counted as living for the purpose of running out the clock still further. What does she think this is? Chicago? I mean, she doesn't get a vote. This isn't Chicago. She doesn't get a vote. There are now reports she's been dying for weeks, but rather than give the administration a heads up, she concealed it again to keep the seat alive for a leftist. But now Trump's supposed to help this nasty partisan achieve her mission to thwart him, to achieve her partisan politics? Are you kidding me? Here we go. You know that Romney and Murkowski will announce they won't vote to replace her. We have to respect her wishes. Well, Murkowski went first. Justin Miller. Justice Ginsburg dictated a statement before death. My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed. June Kelly. That's not how this works, but R.I.P. And June Kelly again. I do not understand why people make these statements on their deathbed. That seat, any seat, belongs to the people, not to her. And that's the most important thing to remember. And again, if we had normalcy, this would not be a disaster. This would not be a shitstorm. But we don't have normalcy. We do not have normalcy. And the reason why we don't have normalcy is because people decided they did not want normalcy. They decided they did not want normalcy. And because they didn't want normalcy, because they decided this, we were going to play these games, now we're stuck on this game. Now we're stuck in the situation. Well, Democrats, you did this to yourself. Media, you did this to yourself. Professors, you did this to yourself. Leftists, you did this to yourself. And Justice Ginsburg, you did this to yourself. You didn't want that to happen. If you were really that upset about this, you could have resigned during the Democrats' time. Now, I don't blame you not resigning, and I've already explained why I don't blame you for not resigning, but it's your own thing. Okay, Bridget online. Wait, they're saying Cocaine Mitch doesn't have enough time? This is like saying Tom Brady doesn't have enough time when he's down by 25 points at the end of the third quarter of the Super Bowl. Good reference, Bridget. Good reference. Yeah, Trump is going to pull this off. Donald Trump is going to pull this off. I'm going to make this prediction. I'm going to stand by this prediction. You may disagree with me. You may not. Donald Trump is going to pull this off. Now, I have a question for those in chat. And I see how many people are here. How many of you think I am right about this prediction? And how many, if you think I'm right, let me know in chat. Am I right? Will Donald Trump nominate someone? Well, I think we all think that Donald Trump will nominate someone. Will Donald Trump win a vote before the election on the nominee? I want to see what people are saying in chat. I say he will. What do people think? What do you think? If you're those of you in chat right now, does Donald Trump win a nomination to the Supreme Court before the election? Okay. Does anybody want to say yes or no? You can just say yes or no, and then modify and then explain it later. But the question asked, and I'm going to put this in Twitter to see if we get more people. Asking now on my live chat this question of people asking on my live stream this question. Will Donald Trump POTUS? Will Donald Trump nominee be voted on? Will the nominee win a vote to replacing Ginsburg before the election? I say yes. You can put in your 2 cents here. Okay, we're gonna. Hope that's the wrong chat. Let me find another. Let me find the chats, this one here, so I can direct people to it. I'm sorry about the delay here, but this is a no frill. I do a no frills podcast anyways, and I'm trying to do this. All of this, everything right now was done on the fly. So, okay, before, I should put before election 2020. I say yes. You can put your 2 cents in here. Okay, the people in chat. Okay, John says yes. Dominic, he says he believes he will appoint someone ASAP. The question is, will he get it? But Dominic, my question is, will he get that appointment go through? Dominic Cotton says yes, but confirmation occurs after the election. Juliet says no. Juliet, I'd be interested in why you are saying no here. You don't think so? And Juliet, for those of you who don't know, is a regular writer on my site. Because of AB5, she had to stop writing for the rest of this year. So she'll be writing for me next year. I'm very curious as to why, Juliet, you think no. I'd love to see it in chat, and I'd love to see people give that opinion. If I could get away with you writing that piece on my site, I'd let you do it. But I'm interested as to why you say no. Let's see if anybody jumps in to answer that question. Again, we're trying. And yes, I am trolling for people to jump into the chat because that's how I get people. For those of you who are new tonight, by the way, remember you can find this chat and this live stream every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Fridays that I work, I push it forward to 11 a.m. If I end up putting in an extra day, then I put it in 11 a.m. Franklin Graham, by the way, 3 hours ago tweeted, "Pray for the family of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who passed away. May God comfort her loved ones." I'm all for that. And there's fill the seat is now, people are starting to tweet out, fill the seat with a hashtag. Let's see what other people are saying. And someone has said, as Christians, we must pray for the soul of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now's the time for gloating green. Glee, I agree. It is time for the new Supreme Court Justice, one who defends the life of the unborn. I agree there too. Time to overturn Roe versus Wade. I agree that. And DM Tester Nationalist. The voter picked the president. The president will select Ruth Bader Ginsburg's successor. Here's Joe Biden's statement. Let me be clear. The voters should pick a president, and that president should send a successor to Justice Ginsburg. And I would expect Joe Biden to make that case. And I do. And by the way, I do not hold it against the left, as I said earlier, to make that case, because that's a logical case for them to make. So, of course, they're going to make it, but it's certainly logical on the other side. For fun, on a different topic, Joe Biden has pledged to nominate an African-American woman. There are 3 African-American women on the federal appeals court who were nominated by Democrats. One is 80. One is unassuming, very bland resume. So I'm wondering who Biden would end up getting nominated. The 3rd and final African-American woman was on the federal appeals court and nominated by a Democrat, the chick who overturns Sarnoff's death sentence. Yeah, that's going to play really well. I think this is going to be very, very, very funny how this is going. And he says, would you use to motivate the middle and disaffected Democrats? That's a fair point, but I think that they would be motivated anyways after the election. I mean, I think they would be more motivated if the seat is empty. If you want to demoralize them, you nominate, and that's an interesting point you've just made. But my opinion is this, and Juliet's point, for those of you who haven't seen it in chat or just joined in, the question I was asking, for those of you who just joined chat, I'm saying Donald Trump nominates and wins the Supreme Court justice fight before the election. I was asking people in chat. Juliet Baldylocks, who I respect greatly, has said no, he will not, because it would be used to motivate the middle and disaffected Democrats. But it's my opinion, if the seat is open, they're more motivated, because if it's open, then by defeating Donald Trump, they have a chance to fill it. But if it's already filled, then they're demoralized. Then even if they beat Trump, the conservative majority is there. And that's the application of power. And that's the contradiction that people are not seeing. That people on the right do not understand the use of power. Donald Trump went, in fact, I'm going to go farther. I already think Donald Trump has this election won. I think Donald Trump guarantees his victory by nominating someone and getting them voted in. Because if the seat is already full, then even no matter what, they've already got the majority. They already got the majority in the court. And that, you want to talk about Democrats being demoralized? That's going to demoralize the Democrats. That's going to destroy them. That's going to be the I'm going home. What's the point? That's going to be the thing. Dominic, Yep. And Dominic says that 3 court justices cements his legacy. I thoroughly agree. Julia thinks I'm making a good point here, but that's the thing. And I want to point out something else. And this is something I remember, and Dominic might remember this because I think you were in town when this happened many years ago. I was playing a softball game against a rival store. We had a pizza bet on it. And we were beating them bad, and I wanted to go a little easier on them. And a friend of mine came up to me to the mound. He was playing left field. And he said, don't do that. Let's stomp them. No, he was catching. He said, we got to stomp them. You don't give them a chance. You finish them off. That's really right. When you got them down, you got to finish them off. And the best example I can give you of this happened at a poker game. I used to host a poker game here at this house 30 years ago. And a friend named Dan, who died very young, and he was literally losing his shirt. And I had a friend named Dave who was winning everything. And I had a house rule because I didn't want people to lose more than they could afford. I said, no one can spend any money they did not bring. Well, there's a hand. Dan's all in, and Dave wants to raise. And Dan can't match it. And Dan said, well, I can go to my car and get a check. I said, nope. The house rule is you cannot spend money you did not bring with you. Because, again, I didn't want anybody to lose anything. And Dave said, I'll tell you what, Dan, because Dan was wearing a big white T-shirt. And Dave owned a comic book store. He actually reopened. He now has a baseball card store again, at least before COVID came. And he said, Dan, I'll tell you what, I'll let you bet your shirt, the T-shirt you're wearing right now. And when you lose, if you lose, I'm going to pin it on my store. And this is when Dan lost his shirt paying poker to me. Dan agreed. Dave accepted that shirt as the call of his bet. Dan won. Dan ended up going home that night a winner, and Dave ended up going home a loser because he let Dan up. If he had refused, Dave would have been a winner and Dan would have been out. Donald Trump needs to, boom. Let's finish this off. Now, I don't mind him waiting till Monday to make the nomination. I would even be willing to wait till Wednesday. Let the funeral take place. But you make the nomination. You make the vote. You force the Republicans to choose sides. Choose sides. And you also and remember one other thing. You're forcing Doug Collins of Alabama to choose sides. Doug Collins might like that seat. If Doug Collins votes for Trump's nominee, maybe he has an outside chance of keeping the seat. I still doubt it, but I don't think that would happen, but maybe. The point is, you use your power to force the other side into a position they don't want to be in. You force Mitt Romney to decide, are you going to vote against that conservative nominee? Are you going to vote against life? Now, I don't trust Mitt Romney to vote for life. I trust Mitt Romney to vote for Mitt Romney. I don't trust Murkowski to vote for life. I trust Murkowski to do whatever Murkowski says she's going to do to do Murkowski. I certainly, if John McCain was alive, I certainly wouldn't have trusted McCain. But I'm telling you right now, if I'm Donald Trump, I nominate someone and I'm going to get this thing passed. And I push. I make those Republicans decide which side they're on. Show which side you're on. Show which side you're on. Steve Dursey says Amy Coney Barrett should be the pick and let suburban women see for themselves what the left really thinks about them. And the Bradford file says Trump won because he promised to fill Supreme Court seat with conservatives. He keeps his promises. McCoskey and Collins vote in favor after the election in lame duck or otherwise. I think Collins votes for it before. I think Trump's not going to give him a choice. I think Trump's going to force the vote. I could be wrong. Now, I have been wrong many times in my life. The thing I've been the most right on was my marriage. 32 years. I'm a very, very lucky man when it comes to my marriage. But I could certainly be wrong on this. He might decide otherwise, but in my opinion, that's not how Donald Trump thinks. That's not how Donald Trump thinks. Like, we are going to go. Oh, now you have people singing Amazing Grace outside the Supreme Court. And I guarantee you most of those people singing Amazing Grace don't believe in God. I can guarantee you that was the case. I mean, it's nice. Of course, I think singing Amazing Grace is kind of stupid because Ruth Bader Ginsburg was Jewish, and that's a Christian hymn. But hey, they mean well. I'm sure they mean well. But nope, you gotta pound it. You gotta pound it into the sand. All right, we've been podcasting now for an hour 40 minutes. I wasn't going to podcast tonight, but we just did this on the fly. I'm gonna quit around 11:30, unless we get a sudden. If I see the chat count like double or triple, then I'll stay and try and do another hour or two. But my plan is to quit in about 10 minutes. So, does anyone in chat want to add something? Does anybody want to say something? I'm going to put something in Twitter for a moment. And ending the live stream in 10 minutes. Yes, there is a sudden rush of new people. So if you want to hear my comments on the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and how it affects election 2020, now is the time to jump in here. Okay, let me throw that link in so that people can do so. And now, as soon as I'm going to count to 10 after I tweet this out, give people a chance to come in. And then I'm going to summarize basically what I've been saying. And we'll see if anything else comes to mind before then. Has anyone thought of anything that first of all, before I do the summary, has anybody in chat think of something I've forgotten or have not considered or need to comment concerning this? I've commented how this is going to affect the election. I've commented on her legacy. I've commented on how it'll affect local and state elections. I've commented on what I think the left will do about it. I've commented on what I think Trump will do about it. Now, am I forgetting something? Does anybody out in chat right now think I've forgotten something or ignored something that I should have brought up? Anybody? I'll give you a few seconds to think about this. And while you're thinking about this, I want to remind you that you can find me here again every Friday at 3 p.m. on my normal day off, or 11 a.m. if I end up picking up an extra shift. You can find me Saturdays at noon on Your Prayer Attentions on WQPH 89.3 FM. Obviously, my Twitter handle is the Tech Guy blog. The site is DaTechGuyblog.com. You can also find me at Adoration. Okay. Thoughts. Does this motivate institutional amendment for Supreme Court term limits to 18 years or so? I don't know, but that's an interesting point. If I wanted such an amendment, now would be the time to introduce it. But I think it would be more likely to motivate an amendment not allowing a Supreme Court justice to be replaced after a certain point, if there's like 6 months before an election. I think that would motivate such a constitutional amendment. That one would have a shot after this. Left threatening to burn it all down if DaTechGuy tried to replace RBG before the election. Good enough reason for him to try? Oh, I think, and as I've already said, I don't know if you were here when I said this, Juliet, but I think that the left would do, first of all, the left's burning things down anyways. Second of all, I think that would guarantee Trump's reelection even more, because the violence that the left does affects people more than Ruth Bader Ginsburg being dead or alive. If you're, as I said earlier, if you are in a town that has suffered rioting, violence, or so forth, and you feel that your life and property is threatened, you're much more motivated by that than a Supreme Court opening, because that's what really matters in life. What happens to you directly is what really matters in life. So that's where that's going. But any other thing, let's see. But I think it'd be interesting. I think it would be interesting to see if such an amendment was introduced after the election. If you introduce such an amendment after the election saying that no Supreme Court nominee can be nominated unless for at 6 months, no vote for a Supreme Court nominee may take place 6 months before an election. Oh, that was a statement. I'm sorry. Thought it was a question that I should address. My bad, Julia. Of course, it's early for you. You're on the West Coast. It's only like 8:27 over there, but it's nearly 11:30 over here. And I've been doing between the first podcast. This is now my third hour. It's like my early radio show. I forget if I did 2 or 3 hours. No, I did. Yeah, I did 2 hours. I didn't do. I don't think I ever did 3 hours. But yeah, it was a statement. I misunderstood you, Juliet. My bad. But anybody else have anything else you want to add? Anything that I missed that you think I should cover here? Anything that I did not cover? Anything that I have not commented on that you think I should comment on? So for those of you who just joined us, we're almost 2 hours into the podcast. I was going to stop because a few of you just joined. I'm going to summarize what I've had to say. Throw your comments in chat, and I will renew the discussion if you have something new that you want to say and that we should discuss. Comments. First comment. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, dedicated public service for opinions I disagree with. She had a very interesting life. Should be celebrated especially by those who agreed with her. I hope God gives her all the mercy he can, because I can use that mercy myself. So I don't begrudge her not retiring, because what else could she do? Husband dead, best friend dead, nothing really else to do with yourself. So she clung to the job that she loved. First thing. Second thing. Democrats have a perfect right to be screaming, oh, now we need to not have this vote or have any vote, and reversing themselves, because that's what you guys did before. But Republicans have the same right to say, oh, you said the other side before, now we're saying it. But bottom line is the Republicans have the power, McConnell has the power, and he's running for re-election. So it helps his re-election to have that vote. The vote's going to happen. The Republicans have the power, and there's no question that if the Democrats had the power, they would use it. As the president said himself a month ago, when asked about something like this, he said bluntly, the Democrats would have the power, they'd use it. Well, they don't have the power. The Republicans have the power, so they're going to use it. That's where power goes. Third thing, again, summarizing. The violence of the left trumps the motivation here, because the violence is close to home for people. In places where there's no threat of violence, this is going to motivate some voters for the left. It'll motivate some of the young people who might not have showed up. This will motivate them to show up. But I don't think it will make a difference in terms of the general election. I think Donald Trump wins the general election anyways. But it is a net plus for Democrats, in my opinion. Next thing, in the Senate races, I don't think the pressure of the Democrats means anything, because the Democrats are not going to love the Republicans anyways. I think Collins the Republican base staying home is more of a threat to Collins than the Democrats voting against her, because the Democrats were voting against her anyways. And if she's foolish enough to think that this would save her with Democrats, then she's an idiot. Wouldn't save her anyways. Nextly, Donald Trump knows the application of power. Do you think that Donald Trump will win the popular vote this time? That's a good question. I think he can. But I don't think the vote total is going to be honest, because the Democrats. Well, it depends. If it looks like if it's too much of a landslide for the Democrats to steal, then Trump wins the popular vote, because the Democrats don't bother to steal it. The Democrats might not run up the total in California because of all the shit that's been going down there. But I really don't know. My gut says yes. And it really says yes if he gets the nomination passed before the election. And that's the other point I was making earlier. If Trump pushes puts the nominee out there, and gets it voted on before the election and wins that vote. If he wins that vote before the election, then definitely he wins the popular vote, because the Democrats are demoralized. Because nothing they can do changes the composition of the court short of murder. And I've reached the point where I don't doubt that murder is possible, but murder could take place. But I don't think the Democrat, and I count on the Democrats. I don't want this to happen. And I'm going to stress this again, because I've already said this before. I do not want this to happen. I do not want the Democrats to get violent. I do not want them to go and do violent, stupid things over this nomination. I, however, fully expect them to do so, because this is the exact wrong thing for them to do. It is the thing most likely to destroy them. But I expect them to do the stupid, self-destructive thing, because that's what they've been doing. And the final point again is that this is where the Democrats' stupidity and actions destroying norms is costing them. If the Democrats had been smart enough to not mess up, if they had treated Donald Trump's presidency like a normal presidency, the Democrats would be able to stop the nomination that's coming and defeat it. The Democrats have not done this. They threw away their credibility crying wolf. The media threw their credibility away crying wolf. And you know what's even worse? Actually, I just thought of a point. You know how I was saying there's something, we'll stop unless I think of something? I just thought of something. How many, how we had an October surprise a couple of days ago, and we've had 3 October surprises this week. And there are probably a half dozen other October surprises that were coming. All of them now don't matter. I can't believe I didn't think of this till just now when I was about to end the podcast. All of the October surprises that the Democrats had lined up for the next 30 days are now toast. They now mean nothing. And I'm going to tweet that out, and then I'm going to explain it to see if we get a few more people in here. And yeah, I know that's a little bit mercenary, but remember, the reason why I do this podcast is I had 2 goals: to increase the traffic on the site and to get an extra 180 a month. This is part of that. But I just thought of it. I can't believe I didn't think of this till just now. Extending the podcast, because it just hit me that the death of notorious RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, totally negates every single October surprise the Democrats had in store for President, real Donald Trump. We'll explain in the podcast in 2 minutes. Join it in the live stream podcast in 2 minutes. Watch it here. Okay. So watch here. Okay, I used up just about all of my characters for that tweet. See if we get a few more bodies in here from that. But yeah, it just occurred to me that of all the effects this will have on the election, one effect that nobody had thought of, and I literally didn't think of it until 30 seconds ago, is that every single October surprise the left was planning over the next 45 days is now history. Every single one will fail. Every single October surprise that the left had. And I mean, and to make this point, think of the October surprise that had just happened. Think of the October surprise that had just happened. I'm going to scroll back because someone tweeted one of these towards me earlier today. And I want to read you this because I think it's very, very important. And I think, and in fact, there's 2 tweets I want to read you about because both of these are significant. And I want to explain how this makes a difference. Tweet number 1. This is from Tom Nichols. One of the things that comes around from the political piece on the Wisconsin GOP voters is that butt abortion is pretty much the only thing that holds some of these people in the GOP to the point of incoherence about any other issue. I was alerted to this by Tim Alberta piece from the Sykes Charlie Newsletter. As usual, listening to Trump voters describe life on Earth too, where Trump is a pretty good president who's just a little around the edges, sapped my will to live. And my answer to Tom Nichols was, yeah, odd that killing kids is a game changer for some. Unexpectedly, of course. FYI, if you believe in killing your kids, it's a bit. Even if you believe in killing your kids, it's a bad long-term strategy for a political party. Kids who are murdered before they are born can't vote 20 years later, not even in Chicago. So for the abortion people, that is big. But here's the other part. When I was talking about how the October surprises are now totally destroyed, I had tweeted back in July 28th of 2015. And someone actually dug this out and replied to it 5 years later. Can't wait to see CNN bring Juanita Broaddrick on to discuss her allegations against Bill Clinton. And Mighty Joe Young tweeted a reply which had the former model Doris alleges Donald Trump sexually harassed her in 1997. That's 23 years ago. And my answer was, I'm shocked that after 4 years of crying wolf, the people think that the American people in general, and me in particular, are foolish enough to fall for a slightly early October surprise. You probably haven't heard much about this because it fell flat. Nobody bought it. In fact, what ended up starting to trend was Tara Reddy instead. Did not work out well for the Democrats. So now you're the Democrats. And let me explain how all of the October surprises have now been destroyed. You are the Democrats. You figure you have an October surprise that will bring down Donald Trump. You've been planning to release it, waiting for just the right moment. But now, the only thing that matters is the nomination to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ukraine isn't going to make a difference for the Republicans. The whatever Russian collusion thing they're going to play isn't going to make a difference against Republicans. None of the plays that these guys would be trying to make are going to make a difference. The only thing that's going to matter is what happens with this. This absolutely destroys any chance of throwing an October surprise because it will get no air. the Ginsburg thing is going to eat up all the air in the room. And if Donald Trump nominates somebody, then it's going to eat up the air more. Now, there's one other thing that I'm thinking here. Now, I'm presuming that the Democrats are cunning. They're not. They're stupid, but they're not stupid in terms of cunning. There's one other thing that Donald Trump could do to thoroughly throw the Democrats off. Now, he just released a new list of Supreme Court people. And I'm sure that the Democrats have started opposition research on some of these folks. I'm sure they have a dossier on Amy Barrett ready to run. Now, what happens if Donald Trump surprises everyone by nominating someone more obscure from that list? What if Donald Trump nominates someone that the left is not prepared to destroy, that the left just plain is not ready for? Now, Trump will nominate someone from his lists, almost certainly. But what happens if he nominates someone that the other side is not ready to play with? Now, I want to read you a couple of things here. I think that totally throws them for a loop. Now, this is a statement from the president, by the way, that just came out since then. Today, our nation mourns the loss of a titan of the law. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg served more than 27 years as an associate justice on the Supreme Court of the United States, notably just the second woman to be appointed to the court. She was a loving wife to her late husband, Ma, and a dedicated mother of her two children. Renowned for a brilliant mind and powerful dissents at the Supreme Court, Ginsburg demonstrated that one can disagree without being disagreeable towards one's colleagues or different points of view. Her opinions, including well-known decisions regarding the legal equality of women and the disabled, have inspired all Americans and generations of great legal minds. A fighter to the end, Justice Ginsburg battled cancer and other very long odds throughout her remarkable life. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Ginsburg family and their loved ones during this difficult time. May her memory be a great and magnificent blessing to the world. That's a nice thing to say. Now, here's the left again. Mostly peaceful terroristic threats. Reza Aslan, again, if they even try to replace RBG, we burn the entire fucking thing down. Update, yep, Andy, no. Observation, a lot of mainstream public figures and intellectuals are calling for arson attacks and violent riots. They sound indistinguishable from Antifa. That's because they're afraid of or know with Antifa. That's because that's where they are. In this sense, Chris Ray is right that Antifa is more of an ideology than an organization, though basically it's the ideology of the contemporary Democrat Party, much as the Confederacy was. From the comments, they should just relax. Trump is going to do exactly what Schumer and Obama would have done in this situation. Analysis true. He's going to fight, and he's going to get his thing. That's what's going to happen. Well, I don't see a lot of extra people in chat. I'm going to see if there's any new comments. I don't see any new comments. Oh, Richard Grenell. Ooh, that would be an interesting pick. Was he on the list, though? I don't think Grenell would be on the list. But the Democrats have already kind of vetted him before because they were attacking him. Because they were trying to block him for other positions, I think they would have a dossier on him already. And I think his nomination would hurt Trump with evangelicals. And I mean, I actually think that the Grenell nomination would be the most likely one to hurt Trump. If he nominated Grenell, I think that could actually lose Trump the election. I think that could actually happen if he made that nomination. Could be wrong, but I don't think that's the nominee. But I would not be surprised to see a nominee out of left field. All right. Again, it's 12:15 here in Massachusetts. I've been podcasting now for 2 hours and 4 minutes when I wasn't expecting to podcast at all tonight. So I'm going to stop now. I want to thank all of you who joined us and participated for stopping by. I want to remind you again, we'll be back here next Friday, 3 p.m. if I don't work, which is what's normal, because Friday is my day off, and 11 a.m. if I do work. You can catch me again at DaTechGuyblog.com. You can catch me at you can tell I'm tired. You can catch me at Your Prayer Intentions Saturdays at noon. And yes, Juliet, he is in fact tough, but there are enough evangelicals who would consider his homosexuality a disqualifying thing. On homosexuality, I think they would. And I think enough of them would that it would be enough to lose things for him. I could be wrong. But if you write that piece at your site, I'll link to it. Guarantee you. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for the up arrows. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the visits. We'll be back. The blog, I'll be back posting on the blog tomorrow. We'll be back here a week from today, 3 p.m. as I said. Double check with me the day before, because if I end up working, it'll be 11. I'll try and give you guys a head up before. You guys have a great rest of the day, and God bless you all.